families being pulled out of their houses in the middle of the night, little children being separated from their parents. That's what the Trump administration meant by mass deportations. I'm Gelernt of the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project. And today we're going to be trying to make sense of immigration policy during the Trump administration. How does your work defending immigrants' rights now compares to Trump's first term? This is by far the hardest time for immigrant communities and the hardest time for us doing our work. The policies are coming literally every week, sometimes multiple new policies every week. In any other era, each one of the things the Trump administration's doing to restrict the rights of immigrants would be the issue during an administration. The other part is how extreme the policies are. The complete attempt to eliminate due process for immigrants, sending immigrants to far-off prisons to be tortured, going after families, going after children, and every day we're trying to evaluate, well, which of these extreme policies do we have the resources to go after? Your next question was, what is the Alien Enemies Act and how many times has it been used in U.S. history? Very good question. The Alien Enemies Act was enacted all the way back in 1798. And what it was intended to do is apply when the United States was at war with another country and there were nationals of that country in our country, we could declare them alien enemies. Not surprisingly, it's only been used 3 times in our nation's history: the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. And the reason for that is because the law is sweeping, but it's very specific. It applies only when there's been an invasion or a predatory incursion by a foreign government. For example, during World War II, we invoked it against Germans who were in our country. The president now has decided he is going to invoke it during peacetime when there's been no invasion of our country against a criminal organization. In this case, against a gang called Tren de Agua from Venezuela, and send them to a notorious prison in El Salvador called SCOTUS, where it's notorious for torturing people. People do not even come out alive. This is an extraordinary expansion of power, and it's a slap in the face of Congress, who enacted this law for a very specific reason. And so we have gone around the country challenging this law and won virtually all these cases. I think it's surprised the Trump administration that judges have said, well, wait, if you want to remove these people from the country, there are other laws to do that. If you think they've committed crimes, then prosecute them. But you can't all of a sudden decide unilaterally as the president, I'm going to act like there's an invasion of the United States by a criminal organization and use a wartime authority. And that's why I think thus far we've prevailed. Has the Supreme Court weighed in on Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act? If not, will they? Another good question. So the Supreme Court has weighed in twice, but in a preliminary posture, what people call a stay posture. And the main thing the Supreme Court already did is reject the administration's view that these men are not entitled to due process. And that was absolutely critical. From the administration standpoint, they not only thought they could invoke this wartime authority and not only thought they could send people to a terrorism prison in El Salvador, but they didn't even have to give them a chance to show that they weren't gang members. Ultimately, the Supreme Court will hear the whole case and not only decide whether the men are entitled to due process, but whether the Trump administration can even use such a wartime law during peacetime. We expect it to be up there this year, but at a minimum, right now, we've established that these men are entitled to due process. Now, what is due process? At a very simple level, it means if you're accused of something, you should have an opportunity to respond. You want some way to say, no, wait. I need to contest what the government's saying. And I think everyone at a deep level believes in that. But what the Trump administration is saying is, well, we're not going to give that right to immigrants. So they're going to send people to a prison in El Salvador where you can be tortured and give them no chance to say, oh, wait, I'm not a gang member. That's why I think you see people from the left and the right come out so strongly and say, wait, that can mean anybody's just picked up off the street, even a citizen. But it also, once you start eliminating due process for certain groups, it doesn't end there. It will mean, oh, well, let's not give due process to these people and then these people, and it'll go well past immigrants. And so at a minimum, We have to have due process for people. The next question switches gears a little, but is also extremely important. It asks, what is asylum and how has it changed in the last 12 months? So asylum is a fancy word for a country providing protection to people who are fleeing persecution in their country on the basis of things like race, religion, political opinion. It came about after World War II when we sent Jewish people back, notwithstanding the danger they were in, and we didn't even screen them. After that, the United States and the rest of the world made a solemn promise not to do that again. It's now the law of the United States that people should be screened to see whether they'd be in danger if they are sent back. The Trump administration has said, we are not going to provide asylum to anybody. And some people say to me, well, there were just so many people, they had to eliminate asylum. And then I ask them, well, what if that family is fleeing persecution on the basis of their religion? Maybe they're Christian in a non-Christian country, and there's overwhelming evidence that if they're sent back, they're going to be persecuted and maybe their life is going to be in real danger, or their kid's life. People always say to me, well, I'm sure those people will be screened for asylum. No. The Trump administration has eliminated asylum for everyone, no matter how much evidence there is that you're going to be in danger of sent back, and no matter what the grounds. It may seem like an abstraction, but for our country to be an outlier in the rest of the world, I mean, be with Iran, North Korea, and not provide a safe haven for people who are fleeing persecution is an enormous change in our country. And so that's why we're in court, and we're under no illusions that it won't end up in the Supreme Court. People are asking, well, what advice do we have for those who feel helpless seeing harm being done to immigrants? The first thing I would say is try not to feel overwhelmed, especially young people out there. I know that's difficult, but I think that's a critical first step, because what I get from a lot of people is, what can I do? I can't really solve these problems. And what that leads to is people feeling like, let's not even try. What I would say is just do anything. Any small little thing is important. Sometimes I even say just be nice to an immigrant family. Even that is critical. Go out and protest. Join a march. If you're a lawyer, take one small case, help one family. If you're not a lawyer, there's the ACLU People Power that you can join. There are lots of things, writing letters to your congressman. Speaking out is critical. What I said after the election and after inauguration, when people asked, well, what can the ACLU do now? The people have spoken. They want mass deportations. I told them then what I still believe, which is that people voted for essentially an abstraction, sort of a vague idea of what mass deportations looked like. Families being pulled out of their houses in the middle of the night, little children being separated from their parents, the rounding up on ethnic and racial grounds because the administration has decided they just want to have the most deportations possible. It's simply not true that only the worst of the worst are being rounded up. And so people need to say, hey, wait, stop. I mean, I can't tell you how many calls I get from people saying, well, wait, I can't believe it. The custodian of my son's school is being deported. I didn't know that's what they meant by mass deportations. He's been here 30 years. He's the best guy. His family is great. He has no criminal convictions. Well, that's what the Trump administration meant by it. And so if you don't like it, you need to put your foot down and say, wait, you said you were only going to go after the worst of the worst. That's not happening. You need to take a stand any way you can. What's your favorite song or podcast to listen to the morning of an argument? Well, what I would honestly say is no matter what day it is, no matter what time of day, if I have time, I'm listening to a podcast about college football. I'm from New York. We don't really have college football, but I'll listen to podcasts about that before our big argument coming up about the Alien Enemies Act. Thank you so much for your questions. Those were great questions, and I think these questions got to the heart of what's going on in the country. If you have more questions, drop them in the comments section below. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you so much.